Welcome back to another episode of Cedar News.
It's Halloween, y'all, and we're here for it. Do you need ideas for some spooky fun this week?
We got you.
Where is Amy?
Hey, Catwoman's here!
You're not no Catwoman.
And you ain't no Batman.
Yes, I am.
That ain't no Batman. Batman is a man in a bat costume. Where's your beard?
Incompetent. I can't believe you messed up this one part.
What did I mess up? Catwoman, a woman in a cat costume.
Whatever, let's just get into the events.
With Halloween right around the corner, here are some dates out to your calendar. First, the trick-or-treat day for Lebanon County is Tuesday, October 31st from 6 to 8 p.m. If you're going out Tuesday, make sure it's for the treating.
Not the tricking.
Very funny. Looking ahead, the mall also will be hosting a mac and cheese festival on November 4th from 2 to 6 p.m. Who doesn't love some creamy, cheesy, delicious mac?
You're overdoing it, just a little bit.
Let me just finish my part.
The festival is co-sponsored by Froggy Valley 100.1 radio station. All types of mac and cheese from local restaurants and businesses will be featured. Go and find out who has the cheesiest, most original, or just the best mac and cheese.
It's most certainly yours. Try.
Tickets can be purchased at macandcheeselebanon.com. All proceeds benefit the Homeless Veterans Campaign.
Back to you.
That's my son.
Okay.
Back to
I
you.
did it better.
All that mac and cheese talk made me hungry. Speaking of food, do you know where ghosts buy their food? At the grocery store.
Let's move on to candy time!
We're back again. This is Super Surveys, and today we're asking, what's the most underrated and overrated candy? What's the most underrated and overrated candy in your opinion?
Most underrated would be Hershey's Take 5 bars. Most overrated, Almond Joy.
What's the most underrated and overrated candy in your opinion?
I'd say underrated is probably Nerds. Overrated is definitely Reese's. It's just too oily.
It's one of the questions that average on
What's the most underrated and overrated candy in your opinion?
The most underrated has got to be Kit Kat. It's like chocolate, and I like chocolate, and I like the inside. The inside is really tasty. And Twizzlers, they're kind of like overrated. Like it's mid and it has a singular flavor. It's like nah.
What's the most underrated and overrated candy in your opinion?
I feel like Almond Joys are definitely underrated. They don't get enough hype for them, and for Jolly Ranchers, those are overrated. Too many people like them, they're not even that good.
What's the most underrated and overrated candy in your opinion?
I think the most overrated candy really gotta be Kit Kats. And I think most underrated is Reese's Take 5.
Oh my gosh. Personally, I think Kit Kats are perfectly rated. Almond Joys though, overrated. This was Super Surveys. See you next week.
Now let's check out a new segment featuring this week's teacher superlatives.
Hi, we're here with Mr. Shack, the math teacher in L123, and we're here to ask you which teacher of the LHS staff is most likely to misuse slang?
So I think I'm going to have to go with my partner in crime down here, Mr. Zahner. He's definitely got a little bit more age on me, but his slang can definitely be taken out of context sometimes just because he doesn't know what he's saying sometimes.
Hi, we're here with Mrs. P, the Spanish teacher for L203, and we're here to ask you, who's the easiest to scare of the LHS staff?
Well, my colleagues will say me, but in reality it's Miss Glenda Piper.
All right.
Very easy to scare.
Thank you. Okay. The art teacher in G256, and we're here to ask you, who's the best dresser of the LHS staff?
All right. I think the best female dresser would have to be Mrs. Sanchez. And the male, I would say Mr. Capello.
All right. Thank you. Have a nice day. Mr. Wise, the biology teacher of A239, and we're here to ask you, which staff member has the best nickname?
The best nickname, it's gotta be Mr. Frizzy. And the reason is because he has so many nicknames. The Frizz, Mr. Farinsky, and my personal favorite, Mr. Freeze.
All right, thank you.
Who would be most likely to go to a Taylor Swift concert?
Ooh, Taylor Swift concert. I would have to say Mrs. Newswanger, the librarian. She'd be fantastic. She'd probably be my #1 choice.
All right, thank you.
You bet, thank you.
Hi, thanks for answering our question. Who would be first to die in a horror movie?
If it were to take place here?
Yes.
I would say
Mr. Roth, the security guard.
Thanks, guys. Now let's hear about some of our city's haunted history from local author, educator, and psychic medium Jan Helen McGee.
Hi, this is the lowest level of the Lebanon Farmers Market. I'm Jan Helen McGee. I do ghost tours that I also call history tours because ghosts are really affiliated with buildings, I think. I do the ghost tours with the Center of Lebanon Association at the end of October, both weekends. I have had dreams about murders since I can remember. I've been able to see through walls. In 1993, I was instrumental in being able to tell the detectives where a murderer was. They found him there and he's in jail for life. Now we're starting down here because I think this is one of the spookiest places. Although there's so many spooky places, this is a really old town. In the 50s, when I was a child, I would come to this market with my grandmother, and I'd always beg her to come down the steps with me because this whole area is haunted, and it's public, so you can come on down. Now, this building in the early 1800s, the locals decided that they needed a jail. So they built one here, and it was completed in 1850. It had very few doors, no ventilation, and almost no windows. There were a few public hangings, but then they decided that they were too macabre. People were starting to have picnics at the hangings, and they brought children, and it was more like a circus than hangings. Now, one of the things about down here is on the floor, there are still places where the prisoners were shackled. I believe that this was where they were shackled. One of the first guys that was hanged here, his name was Nimrod Spottenhoover, and he murdered his wife. Now, she had run away from him so many times, but they were from Ireland, and in Ireland at the time, it was legal to hit your wife, so all the neighbors, none of them helped her, because they're like, oh, it's okay. Everything's fine, it's legal. So he was found guilty of murder and he was shackled here in the basement and then he was hung. Mrs. Spottenhoover, I think her ghost comes around in the area behind the market and keeps us women safe. Just personal belief system. We're on the third floor of the Lebanon Farmers Market. The whole market was a sewing factory. And sometimes if you want to go into the restaurant here on the third floor and look out the windows, I've seen ghosts of women that were in the sewing factory floating around up there towards the ceiling. I've even gone in the main part and looked up and been able to see them. A lot of people ask me about the Blue-Eyed Six, and there's a lot of information out there, but what I found most fascinating was the fact that there were 5 of them were hanged, but when they were on the scaffold getting ready to be hanged, they sang German and English hymns and they said prayers. It started with Brandt. He started the whole thing. It was his idea, hiring 2 guys, Drews and Stickler, to do the crime, and they drowned him in the Indiantown River. Now, it was the first case that was ever publicized nationwide in newspapers, and that's why it started as such a big deal. Another man was named Hummel. Wise was called the Squealer. He had 7 kids, and on the gallows, he's just like, everybody was guilty, everybody, we all did it. But one guy escaped, Zeckman, he escaped being hanged. I think because he taught Sunday school. A ghost is a messenger that is sent, I think, to prove that our struggle for hope or immortality is not in vain. I think our fear and fascination is for 2 reasons. One is because we're anxious about death, and the other is we want to believe in something other than our mortal bodies. It's really up to you. It's a belief system. Ghosts are a belief system. But it's really nice to be able to listen and hear something from somebody that's already passed that you miss. Oh, and I graduated from Lebanon High School in 1969.
Wow, that was really interesting. I had no idea there was so much creepy history right here in Lebanon. If you thought that was interesting, check out the ghost tours that she is leading either tonight or tomorrow. Alright, now let's round out today's episode with another round of creepy trivia.
Congratulations to Mr. Malafronte, Mrs. Maya, Mr. Umbenhauer, and Mrs. O. Seminar for winning last week's trivia. You really turned out this spooky week. Here were the TV shows and movies that sounds belong to.
I want to play a game.
Did you hear that?
This week's trivia, you'll be identifying a popular item from a movie.
Make sure your seminar teacher sends an email to Miss Rodriguez with your answer, or else.
I love this week's trivia questions.
Super spooky.
I missed it. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode.
Stay spooky, Cedars.